that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
All Stars 10 has just started airing. With that, we got the return of several Drag Race queens. Only, there was a considerable amount of queens who've gotten more than 2 chances at the crown that yet again returned to compete. Queens like Ginger Minj, who's now been on Season 7, All Stars 2, All Stars 6, and All Stars 10, Aja, who was on Season 9, All Stars 3, and All Stars 10, or Georges, who's been on Season 14, All Stars 9, and is the first queen to return for a second All Stars in a row with All Stars 10. This was actually a video topic that was suggested by one of you who sent a direct message to me through Instagram. So if you have any topic you'd like me to cover, feel free to always try to contact me in any of my social media platforms. But before we start, this video is brought to you by Squarespace, the super easy platform that helps you build a website without the stress. Whether you're a creator, a business owner, or just want to share your work online, Squarespace has everything you need to get your site up and running in no time. You might think that it's hard to make your own website from scratch, but with Squarespace, it doesn't have to be. Their drag and drop builder and sleek professional templates make it simple to create a site that fits your vision. No coding skills required. Pick a design, tweak it to match your style, and you're good to go. Although what really sets Squarespace apart, it's its integration system. Everything you need to run your site is in one place. If you're selling products or services, Squarespace Payments lets you quickly set up a store and offer payment options like Apple Pay, Klarna, and Afterpay. Want to grow your brand? Their SEO tools help your site show up in more searches, bringing in the right people. Ready to take your website to the next level? Click the link in the description, and once you're ready to go public, get 10% off your first website or domain. Now, let's begin. When it comes to inviting a queen to compete on more than one season of RuPaul's Drag Race, throughout the course of the series, we've seen precedents be set for the framework surrounding it. For example, looking at the first 2 All-Stars, everyone was returning for their second chance at the crown. However, it's All Stars 3 where casting starts to break away from what we considered the norm, with the invitation of Bibi Zahara Benet. While it was her second chance as well, it was the first time we saw a winner be invited back, something that could have very well happened on All Stars 1, since production actually invited Sharon Needles, the winner of Season 4, to return, but she ended up rejecting it since she felt it wasn't necessary. The reason I bring that up is because, as we'll come to learn, there was never really any rule book set by production when it came to casting, which is only further emphasized as the seasons went by. On All Stars 3, Shangela becomes the first queen to return to compete for a 3rd season, having been on Season 2, Season 3, and then All Stars 3. This made somewhat sense, since technically her first time competing only lasted 1 episode, so it didn't really count. And then her time on Season 3 was so long ago by this point that it made sense that they wanted to bring her back again. What we gathered from this as viewers was that if a queen was gonna be invited back for a 3rd season, then it would have to be under circumstances that were valid enough to warrant that additional chance at competing. But like I said before, this concept of precedence was nothing but an illusion that we as fans were creating, because with every season that came after, the rulebook was twisted and twisted until ultimately shattering into pieces. On All Stars 4, the next queens to return for a 3rd time are Manila Luzon and Latrice Royale. Now, while Manila competed on Season 3 and Latrice on Season 4, they both were paired together as a team on All Stars 1. Naturally, they were brought back for All Stars 4, this time to compete as individuals. If you didn't know, for a while, people really wanted the cast of All Stars 1 to get another chance at competing under the proper format, given that the only person that benefited from this season was Chad Michaels, who won the crown. Yet, with the introduction of Manila and Latrice being brought back as a pair, it was assumed that moving forward, we would start seeing more All Stars 1 queens returning to our screens. It's important to note that Manila and Latrice were both asked to compete on All Stars 3, but it fell through because Latrice ended up rejecting it due to the impending arrival of Trixie Mattel into the workroom, who many viewed as a big threat at getting the crown. Regardless, by the time we get into All Stars 5, the next 2 queens to get their 3rd chance were Alexis Mateo and Jujubee. Now, these 2 queens weren't actually paired together during All Stars 1, so it was clear that in terms of the evolving rulebook we were getting, it meant that while the pairs were getting jumbled up a bit, the queens getting their third chance were always going to be from All-Stars 1. Since in the grand scheme of things, All-Stars 1 didn't really count as a proper season to most of the fan base. That's when All-Stars 6 arrives, and things start to go off the rails in terms of multiple chances for a contestant. Within this season, we got 2 All-Stars 1 queens, Pandora Box and Yara Sofia. Yet along with that, we also saw the return of Ginger Minj, who now had Season 7 and All-Stars 2 under her belt. The reason this was sort of shocking was because while it's true that Ginger was an early out on All-Stars 2, it was still an addition that was widely recognized by the audience, along with being actively remembered. So it was a bit confusing to see her return. Regardless, it set a brand new standard, especially when it came to fans' wish list for future All-Stars. All of a sudden, it was okay to include queens from All-Stars 2 or All-Stars 3 to return yet again, because after Ginger's return on All-Stars 6, it proved that it was possible. This really was a pivotal shift moving forward, since essentially there was no limit that was ever going to be reached. Ultimately, as we go through All-Stars 8 and All-Stars 9, a couple queens did receive additional chances, but it's All-Stars 10 that is the true final boss when it comes to the supposed rulebook of casting a season. Obviously, everyone right now is talking about Ginger Minj, who nobody really even thought of someone who we would have wanted to see back, especially since she had such a mega successful run on All-Stars 6. It was sort of like, what other new things would she be able to bring? Regardless, she was invited, becoming the first queen in history to compete on 3 All-Star seasons from the main series. Yet it didn't end there. George's, to me, was sort of a little more shocking, just for the fact that while yes, this was her 3rd season to compete, it came literally right after she had competed on All-Stars 9, which was a non-elimination season. So we had just finished watching her for 12 episodes and already she was on All-Stars 10. All of this has created a new dynamic in the general fanbase's perception of a queen that can shift drastically with each reappearance. In some cases, seeing someone repeatedly can still be fun. Such was the case for Jujubee. But even then, most of the time, if a queen had 2 successful long runs, if they take additional chances at competing, it runs the risk of feeling redundant to the viewers at home. This does raise the question, which is that, is it fair for a queen to want to keep coming back to compete as many times as possible in order to achieve their dream of winning the crown? Or does it end up doing more damage than good if you end up like Ginger Minj, who is undergoing a lot of criticism from the fans? It's important to consider that while to most viewers this is just a slight annoyance, for the queens themselves, this is a business move for them. Most queens who return multiple times aren't necessarily doing it for the glory of being able to win the crown. It's also because it revitalizes your bookings by giving you a boost for the year, and overall more attention from the fan base that doesn't always tune into everything a queen does the moment they finish watching a season. In a sense, All-Stars is a great platform to maximize your own brand. Something else worth pointing out is what this trend says about the producers and what they prioritize now. It kind of feels like casting queens who've been on multiple times is less about giving someone another real shot and more about sticking with what's safe. Like, if a queen has a fan base, a catchphrase, or some unfinished storyline, producers know people will be excited to see her walk back into the workroom, even if she's been there 3 or 4 times already. It's an easy way to keep people invested without having to introduce someone totally new. But at a certain point, it starts to feel repetitive, especially when it's always the same US-based queens getting the call back, with lesser known or international queens that get left out. That's where UK vs. the World Season 1 comes in. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's not technically part of the main All-Stars franchise, but it was instrumental in the birth of Jujubee being the original Thanos of drag. Jujubee competed on Season 2, All-Stars 1, All-Stars 5, and then once again returned to the workroom for UK vs. the World Season 1, the very first international edition of All-Stars, representing the United States. This basically set into motion a beast that was about to break out of its cage. But back then, Jujubee held the title of the queen who had competed in the most amount of different seasons. Focusing in on the vs. the World franchise for a second, this was a whole mess in itself. With UK vs. the World Season 1, there was this precedent where most of the queens were coming back for their 2nd time competing. Pangina Heels was a bit of a unique case since she was the host of Drag Race Thailand and was actually competing for the first time. But what stood out was that both of the US queens had already done All-Stars before. Jujubee, who we've we've already covered, and Mo Hart, who had been on season 10, All Stars 4, and now this. For some reason, the whole pattern of the American representation being a queen that had already competed on an All Stars from the American version became the standard for Versus the World editions, including the Canadian one. UK Versus the World season 2 saw the return of Mayhem Miller, who was now back for her third shot, and then over on Canada Versus the World, both Raja O'Hara and Silky Nutmeg Ganache, who had previously competed on season 11 and All Stars 6, came back again, with Raja ultimately getting the crown. And don't get me started on Canada Versus the World season 2, that took things to a whole nother level, because we had queens returning for their fourth time, like Eureka, who had been on season 9, season 10, and All Stars 6, or Alexis Mateo, who had done season 3, All Stars 1, All Stars 5, and now Canada Versus the World season 2, where they ended up blueballing her and placing her as a runner-up. All of this brings us to a bigger question. At what point does it stop being All Stars and it starts just to become a rotating cast of familiar faces? While it's fun to see our favorite queens come back and grow with each appearance, it also runs the risk of making Drag Race feel like it's stuck in a loop. There are so many queens from past seasons, international franchises, or even early outs who've never had a second chance, and yet we're still seeing the same handful of names over and over again. So as Drag Race continues to evolve and expand, you kind of have to wonder, are we giving everyone a fair shot at the crown when queens who are returning for their third, fourth, or fifth chance have an easier time adapting to the competition than a queen who's freshly entered their second shot at the crown? At the end of the day, the idea of multiple chances is something that means very different things depending on who you ask. That's what makes this such an interesting topic, because there isn't really a right or wrong answer. Yet one thing has become clear though, and it's that depending on which queens are invited moving forward for their third or fourth time, they will be either widely celebrated or heavily critiqued for not having shown enough growth. So hopefully production will find a good balance for their cast between sandwiching reoccurring contestants with fresh faces, because at a certain point, the idea of never-ending chances might be stretching people's patience. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to click the link in the description to get 10% off your first website or domain. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a quick like and comment below to help me out with the algorithm. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncles, Sari Tish, Natasha De Leon, Las Potitas, Cool Gal Nan, and Jetsam Adams. And in the Green Squad, we have Cayman Rider Furry, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch But a Keek, Jack Beck, Bashir with the Good Beard, Galeria Gomez, Sarah G, Boiled Peanut, Max Whale, Olivia Marr, Dea, Scarlet Rose, Niall O'Hearn, and Michael Alsante. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching this video, and get ready for more.